Doobity-bop, doobity-bop, doobity-bop. I should probably have started it here. I can always cut it down. Hey guys, I may or may not be your instructor, Liam Malero. I'm going to show you how to make a bottlenecked vase, or just a bottle in general. Something that involves you closing up the lip of your piece relatively narrowly. So, if you're just tuning in, what's going on is I'm preparing to have a piece that's going to want to have the memory of of basically a cone to make sure that our top does not veer away from the center of the wheel. We want to keep this inward direction all the way up until we start making our final shape for the most part. And we also want to be a bit reserved with how much clay that we raise with each pull when we start to make our ascent, because if you get too thin too quickly, you won't be able to have the appropriate structure to retain that form of something with a fine neck. So this is when I'm going to really exercise the width of my form at the base more specifically. Wow, that is, yeah, I thought so. Great. So this first raise, I really just want to make sure that I'm approaching the center of the wheel. I want to keep that firmly narrow so that the clay is going to remember to keep going to that point over and over again. Even if I have to open up something that's a very fine width and diameter, it should still want to close up as long as I have enough clay there and as long as I've already been coning in this entire time and raising inward. Compressing that top, keep it strong, and have an idea of the kind of form you want to make before you start throwing something like this. I don't want something that's too wide or too narrow, so I'm just going to cone this in a little bit. Releasing a little bit of pressure towards the top to retain that wall thickness up there that will allow us to make those really bold moves of how narrow to get. And when you're coning in to make the top narrower, you never just want to approach only the top. It's not impossible to do that, but it's a lot easier when you kind of make your way from underneath that point to collect the clay. And notice as I'm collaring up, I have got at least one finger on the top of the lip to help me compress as my hands are coming up to the top of the form as well. Okay. You can slowly start to make an incline where you know that you want that accent to be the shoulder to the neck. But again, it's just kind of like a gesture. You don't want to exaggerate it too firmly. And it's still pretty thick up here, which is what I want. Getting rid of that excess clay on the base that I really don't need. Make sure that you get your water out from underneath, from the bottom of your form on the floor before you get so narrow that you won't be able to take it out later, because then you'll have some really bad cracks in the base when it starts drying. So if I really wanted to, I could pretty much close this thing now because of how much material I have up here. And now I can start to think about my final shape. So I'm going to go for a narrow neck with a base that's not, a belly that's not too wide. As you can see, the width of my hand is greater than the diameter of the top of the form. Don't be afraid to open it up again, though, as long as you've been doing what we've been talking about so far. So here we go. Be careful when you get to the width of that shoulder. You need that support. If it gets too thick up here, you're going to need to thin it out by raising from that point of the clay of the piece. So because I'm going to have a closed form for the most part, or close to it, I'm going to want to have the shape of this accounted for, contour, as soon as possible at this point to avoid missing or being unable to reach those parts from the inside once I start to close this face. And everything about this is gradual. If I was making something that was wider on the body of this form, I would not want to widen it to its widest point immediately. I want to work my way there very cautiously. Also, keep into the back of your mind that you're going to be trimming as well, most likely. So, you know, if you leave a little bit of extra clay on the base for support, that's fine, but be mindful that you don't want to leave so much that when you trim away, it's going to completely alter the contour of your piece. So now I'm going to start to color in, but from the top. I'm pretty comfortable with this. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I really just want to focus on bringing this neck in. And so this is like, I don't know, 5/8 of an inch or so up here, maybe a little less. And this is going to really be important for when I do this, when I'm coloring in from the neck to the top of the form. So very easily that's giving me access to shrink the diameter by pretty much half without even trying too hard. But again, once it gets too thick up here, you're going to have to slightly raise this material so that it doesn't get away from you. And always compress. If it gets uneven on the top, just trim away with a needle tool. Should be fine. And so this gradual progression is just about making your way downtown, walking fast. I can't even help it when I'm making demo videos. Just making your way towards the center of the form and thinking that your hands are going to meet when you're coloring in. You don't want to try to keep up with the wheel and adjust the pressure. It's just be consistent pressure for your hands to try to close on their way up. And as long as you've got at least 3 points of access, it's going to want to close up evenly. So notice I'm starting near the shoulder. Both of my hands are coming towards each other, all the way to the top. Getting a little uneven up there, but that's okay. Fix that up, compress. It's getting a bit thick again. So I raise. Okay, and I will trim that material off in a minute, but I don't feel like losing too much right now, so I'm not going to worry too much. Just compressing for the time being. Oh, that's great. Alright, so I'm already starting to get a decent amount of height on the neck. And, oh, by the way, feel free to, no, I love it when you guys talk in these videos, because I watch them and I'm just like, awkward timing. It's the best. And you can go pretty much as thin, as narrow as you'd like. When it gets to the point that you physically can't reach inside with one of your fingers, you can use another tool to substitute and kind of raise along that point with your outside hand, completely fine. A little more water on the top. Cone in once again. Don't push too flat on the shoulder because eventually it's going to want to sink in. And this is a bit of an excessive neck, I think, for a bottle, like a form of this stature, but I'm just kind of emphasizing the principles to get a good visual. You weirdo. Oh goodness. Yeah, I guess we all are. So there we go. And I'm just gonna trim a little off with the needle tool on the top of this form. Actually, I don't know that I really have to. Let's do one more raise first. Go for a more traditional emphasis on the top.
That's what's in your neck.
Getting there.
I was so excited when I was like, I bought you.
Never change. Never change.
Classic Allie.
I have all of these.
All right, let's just give this one final push in.
And Anto.
This is the place.
This is the place. Best food in New York City. I don't think so, buddy. All right, so I'm basically gonna leave it there. Make a couple moves with my rib tool. Yeah.
Hey, man, get back to work, man.
Hey, what you doing over there? And again, it's really important to remember, like I mentioned before, make sure you get all of the water out before this point if you can.
You look so satisfied.
They're so good. Fast cookies. We the best.
We the best. We them boys.
This is like the original cookie I got from that time when I was like, they did something and they have like Costco cookies or something.
Do you think that actually happened?
Yeah. Like somebody messed up or something. And they're like, no cookies today. What do we do?
Yeah, I got to it right now. Be careful that someone doesn't hit that pedal.
Word.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye bye, yeah.
Liam's a large man, so. Oh, yeah? Don't you dare.
You know, I don't know. Let me not say anything. I'm not going to claim anything. That was my bottle demonstration before I get too sassy. Leave your comments and questions below. Let's keep them positive. It's always fun making these videos for you guys. I'd like to thank my sponsors. That's it. All right. Have a good day, everybody. See you next time. Or not, because you're on the other side of this. But that's it. That's it.
Wow, they even get a little stand-up.
A little stand-up?
They get a little stand-up with the demo.
Yeah, they do. I'm telling you, I'm gonna make a channel that like
Yeah?
is for funny pot videos. And I'm also gonna make ceramics. Hey guys, check it out, I'm making pots. Anyone want to tilt? Yeah. Take it full. No, I don't hate that. You know what? How sweet it is to be